All right. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me today. Today, we're going to be going through Exact Path, which is one of the programs that Minnesota ABE utilizes, and your programs do. If you're not using it yet, hopefully after today, we'll have you all set and ready to go to start using it with your learners. So a little bit as we get going, just about Edmentum. Edmentum is the company. Our products are courseware, which you use in your programs, as well as Exact Path, and we have a number of other ones as well that I'll review here in just a second. But our vision is really a world where educators succeed and students thrive everywhere learning occurs. And with a mission to create innovative, proven learning technology, partnering with educators to ignite student potentials. And then our values, you see them there at the bottom of the screen. We place educators first. Our purpose is what fuels us. We create positive impact. Our people are our heart. We lead with respect and trust. Empathy guides our actions, and diversity and inclusion strengthen us. So just a little background about our company and who we are that you're working with. And as I mentioned as well, we have another number of other products as well that are utilized. Some of them are more K-12 or elementary specific, so they're not going to be things that you see. But you can see that we have assessment for learning products, digital curriculum, which is where courseware fits. Assessments for learning is where Exact Path fits. And then some instructional services that are more K-12 related. So to get to know you a little bit better today, I just picked a question that's kind of fun. What is the strangest food you have ever tried? If you want to go ahead and just pop that in the chat, it'll ground us a little bit before we get going and jump into the content today. I was thinking about this question myself, and I was trying to come to a place that I was going, what is the strangest food I ever ate? And I think the most unique experience I ever had eating, my wife and I went to dining in the dark a couple weeks back in St. Paul, and they blindfold you, turn the lights down low, and feed you things that you have no idea about. So, but my most unique food, I think, was crickets. And it was a motivational tool for a student that I needed to do some work. And it was his reward for getting that done. So see some great things in the chat as well. Shark, fried alligator, iguana, very interesting. And my husband's cooking there. Some great answers and definitely unique foods that we've seen. That's awesome. Well, great. As I mentioned, my name's Andrew Kappel. I'm a customer success manager with Edmentum. My email address is there, and I'll make sure that you have that at the end of this presentation as well. If you ever need anything, or you're going, I know we talked about this in a training, but today I am not remembering, feel free to contact me, reach out directly. That is my job. I'm here to support you and make sure that you are able to utilize and implement our products with fidelity that work best for your program and your students. So prior to coming to Edmentum, I was a social studies teacher in elementary and high school, an instructional coach, and then both assistant and principal of middle and high schools. So that's my background. I've worked in education, and a long time ago, I did work in adult basic ed and GED program down in Iowa, though. But that's seems like another life ago. So I may be able to relate some things back to you, and I know we've tailored our presentation today to try to make it more beneficial and specific to you as well. So, all right, as we jump in, one more chat participation for you, just for me to get a gauge of where you're at with Exact Path. Kind of thinking of that stoplight. Red, I haven't even touched it. Right, yellow is I've maybe opened it or seen somebody use it, but I really am not moving into that expert realm. And then green is, hey, I've seen it, I know what I'm doing, and I'm ready to go. So, all right, see some colors popping in there. Excellent. That helps me out a ton to know where you're at so that we can cater this specific to you. Uh-oh, I got a blue. I think that's somewhere between a green and a yellow there. Perfect. Okay, well, thank you for that feedback. So today we're going to really just look at the functionality of Exact Path, and that is specifically diving into how do we get our learners in there and moving with a learning path and using the program. At a later time, we can come back together and we can discuss now that we have all this data, we've had our students learning in there, then what, right? More of that data review and looking at that piece. So today's learning objectives, we're going to look at our agenda. We'll go over our learning objectives, then our outcomes for implementation, an exact path overview, what a learning path is for our students. We'll look at the student interface. We'll create a class. So you make sure you have your login information. I know Elizabeth said she'd help with that. If you don't have that information, it's the same as courseware. And then we'll look at some best practices and a brief overview of notifications and reporting, specifically how to identify how long a student's been in the system so that you have that information for reporting. And then we'll end with a reflection. So, all right, so at the end of the day, you'll be able to navigate the platform, create a class, describe the learning path, and prepare students for exact path. All right. So, and your outcomes may be a little different than what we have listed here, but really what exact path does is it will help identify the learning gaps for your students and learners and provide the remediation needed to get them onto grade level. And your specific grade level that we're going to work through today, it's a little unique, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. So we're going to set most of your learners at a 12th grade level, because that'll allow the program to go back and bring them up to that adult learner and the place that we want them to be level wise. So exact path is two things. All right. And this really sums it up well. There's a quote there. I won't read it to you, but if you want to read that while I talk about this, go for it. It's an adaptive diagnostic assessment. And what a diagnostic assessment is going to do is it's when we set our students at a 12th grade level, it's going to start with a 12th grade question in reading or math, whatever content we are putting our students through the diagnostic for. And it's going to adapt to their level. So if they get it wrong, it's going to give them an easier question. If they get it right, it's going to continue them on, and in our case, specifically at a 12th grade level. But it's going to continue to adapt down. And then if they go down a level and they get it correct, it's going to go a little bit harder, a little easier, until it identifies within the different domains where our students are at. So that's the adaptive diagnostic assessment. And then it also, after the diagnostic assessment, it takes those domains that it identifies the levels and skills where the students are at, and it gives them specific content to practice in their area based on their individualized results. So that is the individualized learning path. And within exact path, we really see it do four key things, right? First, it diagnoses the learning needs, which I just talked about through that diagnostic assessment. And it leverages that data that's collected there to create that learning path. And then it moves into the instruction portion. So we'll instruct with a competency-based curriculum, and it'll actually have a very familiar feel, especially for your learners that are using courseware, because the upper grades have a very similar look to courseware. So it'll feel similar for your students. The third thing is it targets those unique learner needs, right? That it's not the same for every student. It takes that diagnostic learner or diagnostic assessment and creates that individualized learning path that is targeting specific needs for that specific student. So if one student is struggling with algebraic functions and another student is struggling with number sense, it's going to differentiate that and make sure that a student is getting what they need. And then finally, it's going to help us analyze growth, progress, and usage with reports that we can both run and that show up for us on our teacher dashboard for immediately knowing where our students are at. So, all right, so students we're going to jump back out, and I'm going to just show you the teacher dashboard. And while I log in here, I want you to think about and make sure that you have your username and login handy. So I'm going to drop this in the chat real quick. Let me find my chat here. This is the login link for ExactPath. And you can definitely log in if you want to. You don't need to do anything right now as I log in and show you what it looks like, because I'm going to show you user creation first. And this is something unique to your programs because you have to create your users as you log in. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screen. Yes, your account is MLC1. For today, we're going to be using a demo account of mine. It's AKA 02 when we get to the student piece, but remember yours is MCL1. And if you're set up with your email address and your district or organization has a Google single sign-on, you can also click your Google or Microsoft single sign-ons there. They are active for your districts, but only if your information is correct in the system to your email address, specific to your district. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And the first thing that you're going to see, and I'm going to move this because I think you're probably seeing that too. And is everybody seeing the correct screen there? Just to make sure that we're screen sharing the right one. It looks like we are. When you log in, it's going to be the same as you see when you log into Courseware. And within Courseware, you land on your Edmentum Sensei page. Up top, you're going to have your courseware. And here, my program is Utopia High School. Yours is going to be your specific ABE program. They also have flex assignments, and that we've gone over in previous trainings. And I'm sure we'll have another one coming up here at some point. And then you'll have ExactPath here, and that's how you access ExactPath. But in order to enroll a student, you need to go to the Administration Center. And in the Administration Center, and you only have access to this if you are a program administrator, under Users, you can manage students. And you can click Create a User right here. So when you create a user, the one thing I do want to stress, and this is a really important thing if you're taking notes, I would write this down and star it. After you get your student information in there, select that they're a learner, right? And for their grade, please set them to grade 12. That's been something that we've learned as we've gone, especially with the adult programs, is that at first we had some people guessing, what grade do I think they're about at? We want to set them at 12 because that's our goal with ExactPath, is it's a K-12 platform to move them in that way. Don't set them at adult because the system is generated learning past K-12. And so when it's identifying those gaps, we want it to be set at grade 12 and then go down instead of guessing a different grade where we think they may be and going up, because it's not going to accelerate a student automatically, but it will remediate automatically. So set your students at 12. That is what you need to star and highlight as you create students. Once you've created a student, username, password, and just confirm the password. I typically choose a generic password when I'm creating an account for somebody. My go-to, because I work at Edmentum, is Edmentum1, and I let people know, this is your password, please change it as soon as you log in. And like I said, if you have Google or Microsoft single sign-on for your district or your program, if you put the correct email address in here for that is linked to that single sign-on or that Google or Microsoft account, your learners can just click that button instead of putting all the information in there. So pretty slick piece there. You don't have to worry about all the pieces of information with creating a student. You do have to select active or inactive. Their role in the system, and make sure you put them at learner and not an instructor, right? And then all you really need to do is select that grade, make sure it's at 12, put their name and their username, password, and then add them to your program for your structure. So mine's elementary, middle, and high school. Yours are going to have the specific programs that your ABE is running out of. So that's that. This down here, you really don't need to worry too much about that. It's not required to create an account. And once you create it, you can save and return to users. I'm going to cancel because we didn't actually create that. All right, once they're created.
Andrew, sorry to interrupt. Could you go over the program location?
Yes. So the account structure piece?
Yes.
Yep.
As we have many accounts to choose from.
I'm actually going to give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing. And can I log into your account and just show it the way it is?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So we're going to copy. Take me 1 second to switch accounts here. Okay, now I am actually in the Minnesota Literacy account. So if I go back to Administration Center, and we're going to go into Users Manage, like we would create a student, create a user. Give it a second to load here. All right, so as same pieces that you have here, you'd fill out your active, inactive, your system role. So learner, grade level 12, first name, last name, and email address. Although it's not required, I highly recommend it, because that's where I forgot my password's going to go. And that's an important thing. You can always go into and find that user and edit the password for them. And then under account structures, you'll click the little caret next to ABE and select your appropriate program within there. So that they have access to that program and they'll show up. So if I'm going to use Forest Lake as an example. I'm not sure if anyone here is from Forest Lake, but if you're Forest Lake and you select Forest Lake, when you go into ExactPath to pull students in, they'll show up in that program. So make sure that a correct program is. And that's the same way for courseware as well. Both these programs are housed on the same platform. So if you create a user for ExactPath or a user for courseware, they'll show up in the opposite program as well. So, okay. I am going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to switch back to my demo account. And actually, let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about what happens after we pull in students and they take that diagnostic assessment and they're ready to go. So give me 1 second. I'm going to jump us back to the presentation and we'll talk about that real quick. So here we go. So after a student has taken a diagnostic assessment, right, we'll go over how to sign them up and what that looks like in ExactPath here in a few minutes. They're assigned that learning path. And you can see here that the screen looks a little bit different. Just ignore the younger setting. It looks different for kids that are in K2, 3-5, and then 6-12. So if you look at the 6-12 one on the left side there, it does look a little bit more like your courseware platform. So a little bit more older learner friendly than the animated younger student piece there. So an individual learning path, that diagnostic will first identify the areas that a student needs to learn, and then it will assign that learning path. And what the learning path is it's the standards that the student did not perform well on the diagnostic or maybe need more practice. It will assign content based on that. So you'll see the content that starts out with a lesson, right? After the lesson, they'll be given some practice. And there's some questions to answer within the practice, some right and wrong, some immediate feedback for the student. And then there's a progress check. And that progress check is typically 5 questions. And in order to move forward, students need to, they need to get 4 out of 5 right? They need to reach mastery on it. And if they don't reach mastery, there's some built-in supports that are there. So let's talk a little bit about that mastery piece, right? We have that progress check, and when they hit mastery, which is 80% or more, they move to the next skill. When they don't hit mastery, the system will identify that they need additional remediation on that skill. So if that is needed, they'll be assigned what's called a building block. And we'll be able to visually see all this from the instructor side when we take a look at it here in just a couple minutes in the live settings. All right. And that will continue to work on that. After they reach the the mastery check within that building block, they'll either move forward back to the original skill, or they'll potentially be assigned another building block for that if the content is available. Oh. So there it is. They score less than 80%. They go down, or they score greater than it, they go back to retaking it. They score, and then they score more than 80, they master that skill. So when they're assigned that remediation piece, if they're unsuccessful again, like I said, they'll go back and be assigned another building block. If they are successful, they'll go back to retaking the original skill they started on that learning path with an alternate lesson. Now, the catch to it is that if a student is not successful again on the first building block, they'll go back and they'll get another building block. But if they continue to be not successful with it, we ask that the teacher intervene, and actually the program is going to stop the student from continually going back. And the reason that happens is because we don't want students to continually go, oh, I'm not getting it, and just get so frustrated that they give up. We want the experts to intervene, and I'll show you some great resources that are available within ExactPath for you to intervene. So if this red X on the bottom of the screen shows up in the knowledge map or on the current learning path screens that we'll look at, that's a cue to you to say, hey, step in, take a look at some of the resources that are provided, and work with the students there to make sure that they're seeing success. All right. And that's kind of the same thing that we looked at in that last screen, right? To ensure that our students are always moving forward, no more than 2 attempts at skill remediation are allowed before they can proceed, right? And so if they do get that X, it's going to move them automatically to the next skill they need to be working on until the instructor comes and intervenes with them to ensure that we're seeing some success. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing again here. Oop. And we're going to jump into the program live. So if you want to log in and follow along with me, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to create a classroom. Right. Let me move these things off the screen so you're not seeing those. And I'm going to log back in. So again, the first thing that you're going to see when you log in is you are going to see the Edmentum Sensei page, right? And if you've been, or you've done some work within courseware, you know that on this page is where you're going to get all the pieces of information that you need to know around what your students are completing. So if they're sending you messages, announcements, if they have something that's locked or they've mastered a test, assignments due, they're all going to show up right here for you. This account I just set up today. And so it's fresh and ready for this team to work in and see what it looks like from scratch, both from the student and instructor side. So we're going to go to ExactPath. Along that top menu bar, you have the different programs. You have your courseware, flex assignments, then ExactPath. So we'll go ahead and click into ExactPath. And when you click into ExactPath, this is the screen that shows up. Again, this screen, just like Edmentum Sensei, is going to have some different data pieces here for you. You'll see that if you have students that are struggling, failed once, not mastered, have a lock quiz or retaking, all those are going to show up right here for you. It's going to show you what your students are doing. So you have a quick view of it right here. You can also filter it by subject area, so mathematics, reading, or language arts as well. The basic navigation for ExactPath, then up top, if we go back to up top, we have our navigation in the system to get to ExactPath. And then we have the big Edmentum in my classes, math, reading, language, art, reports, and assess and teach. And then as you click each one of those, different options show up in the white bar underneath those. To get to that home page, all you have to do is click on that Edmentum sign, and it will always bring you back here. I like the home page because there's a couple quick access buttons for you to do different pieces right from here. The one that we're going to do today is create a new class. You can also get there by going to this manage classes piece, but I like this quick access button of just create a new class. Excuse me 1 second. When you get to create a new class, yours is going to be empty if you haven't created a class yet. I have our demo class for today and another demo in there as well. But to create a class, you just click the big create a class button on the right there, and it will allow you to do some different pieces. Because I'm logged in as myself in this case, the demo instructor, it automatically adds me to the instructor settings. I just need to add a name to my class. And it's good to follow some conventions. The convention I would encourage you to do is maybe the school year or the year that you're within. So if you're working with students in the 23-24 school year coming up, I might say fall ABE 23-24 as my naming convention, just so I know that that class is that group of learners. Now, the piece about ExactPath that is unique for your programs is we do have to roll over academic years. And so there are 4 testing windows within ExactPath for diagnostics. And Elizabeth and I have worked to set those so that they run all year quarterly. Every 3 months, there's a window open for students to take that diagnostic. And I'll show you a couple workarounds as well on how to navigate that. Select your grade again here, put it to 12th grade, although this is not as mandatory as setting the grade for the individual student. You can have students in multiple grades in the classroom, so this is not as big of a deal. And then select your location. So these might show up as high school, middle school, elementary, no location. Select the program that you're working in. So again, like the example I used of Forest Lake, you would select that there. Sometimes this defaults so you can't see the students as well. This button right here will allow you to see them. Easiest way to find your students is click on your program, or you can search students just by typing students. They'll automatically start to show up. So I usually do that and then select grade. All of your learners are going to be 12th grade, so this won't matter as much. And you can see it narrows it down to a list of students that I can select and put into the program. So I would, given that we're going to do a Minnesota Lit, I would add my Minnesota Lit students here just by clicking them. And you'll see as I add them, they go down to the bottom there, right? And I just select the ones that I want. I don't want the rest of them, so we're good. I can verify that my students are there, and we're good to go. And actually, I'm going to do fall ABE 22-20 or 23-24, and I'm going to do reading actually for this group because I want to use these students in my reading. And I didn't select my high school, but I'm going to select it there. And once I'm done, I can save class. The one thing that I think might be useful for you though is if you have somebody you're team teaching with, or somebody that you are that is at your program that needs access to the students in ExactPath, you can add them here as well. If you have multiple instructors that are pulling students into ExactPath, they can pull them into different classrooms and they don't have to take different diagnostics for each of the classroom. Once they take a diagnostic, that learning path is their learning path, no matter how many classrooms they're enrolled in. So don't worry about adding students to different classrooms. It's okay. All right, once we're done there, we'll save our class. And you'll see that it added to our list here. And if we need to go back to manage class and we need to add some students, we can do that right here just by clicking the little pencil next to the name of the class. It'll bring us back into the same screen that we were in, and we can add additional students there if need be, or instructors. Okay, I am going to pause there just for a moment for any questions. And while we take questions, I'm also going to give you about 5 minutes to go in and create a class of your own. And don't worry about adding students. If you add them right now, they may see it on their login, but you can also just set up a class, or if you want to get them all set up, we can do that right now too. So go ahead and create your class. If you weren't following along, I'll stay here so that we can do that. I'll answer questions, and if you have any that come up. Andrea, I see a hand up. Go ahead if you want to unmute yourself.
Thanks. So I created my first class, and I took 2 students that I'm using in courseware who I had set as adults, edited them to 12th grade.
Perfect.
But I just want to make sure that it's not going to screw up what they're doing in courseware, right? Their classes stay the same.
Yep, they will be still enrolled in their classes and courseware. You're good to go.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering about, you said there were 4 quarters. Can you add students at any time? Like my program's open enrollment, so we have students starting all the time.
Yes, you can. I'm going to cover that when we talk about scheduling the diagnostic for students.
Okay.
Because it is unique for all programs, especially with ABE, because you're right, you have students coming in and out, and it can get, it's a little different than a K-12 school where they may have a testing week, right? So
Right.
we'll
Okay.
cover that and look at how to best manage that for every program.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
And Andrew, I had a question about adding other instructors. So every program kind of does their hours keeping a little differently, but if I'm in a program where we just have one designated teacher or one staff person who enters the time for all the students into our database, I should probably add that person as an instructor in my course, and that way they'll have access to all my students' time data.
Absolutely, that would be a good idea. They'll be able to see it, but they'd have to create their own class, which can get a little confusing sometimes. So that would be a good practice, is just add them to your current classes so that they're available to see it.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions on creating a class? Well, we are going to move on then to our next piece. So we created a reading class for our demo purposes. I'm going to click on reading, and I'm going to go to my knowledge map within reading. And it's going to display some data. Well, it shouldn't actually, because we have a new class. I need to select the correct class. So if you have multiple classes, you can switch between them here. We're going to select that one. You'll see that we have no data for this course because we just created it, right? However, if I had a student that had taken the diagnostic in somebody else's course for reading, and I added them to this course, I would see their learning path show up. So none of these students have taken the learning path or the diagnostic for reading. Now, if I wanted just to start them out without taking a diagnostic, because there's a million things going on, I could click this little button next to their name. And what this does is it creates a learning path that's based on the student's grade. So it could create a learning path that's based on 12th grade content if you felt that was the best to do. Best practice is to have them take that diagnostic, because it will identify the specific goals that they need. But if you need to, that's there as an option within the knowledge map for you. Okay, I'm going to jump out of here. I'm going to go back to reading, and I'm going to show you a couple different pieces here. You can ignore the NWEA map piece because that's not something that we're going to do, but you'll have diagnostic scheduling here, and you have your diagnostic results. So we won't have any results because nobody's taken it yet, but I will show you some data from classes that have taken it, and we can look at that. So testing window 3 is what we're currently in. These are not your dates. Your dates, I just snippy tooled them here. Currently, if you can see my screen, for diagnostic 1 went until April 30th. The second diagnostic is running May 1st through July 31st. And then our new academic school year starts, which means everybody has to take that diagnostic again. And that pattern will continue moving forward. So if you have program manager or program administration rights, please don't edit the testing windows, because that will change it for all programs. With ExactPath, there's not a way, unfortunately, right now to create different testing windows by program. So please don't edit those, but I'll show you how to bypass that. If you want a student to, let's say a student came in on July 15th, took the diagnostic, and you don't want them to take it again on August 1st, when that new window opens, I'll show you how to do that. So again, we're in our classroom, we're in the diagnostic, we're in our current testing window, and I need to select my class. So fall ABE reading 23-24. And all of my students are going to show up here under not scheduled. They're not currently scheduled to take that diagnostic. If I have different students coming in at different times, I may want to schedule them at different times. So I can select either by student or select all and click schedule. And this window will pop up. And when do you want this to become available? And when do you want it to go away? And you just put your time and dates in there. So we're going to have it become available at 5 p.m. today. And we'll have it go through, we'll say, end of next week till 5 p.m. And once we've done that, we'll schedule. And you'll see that during this time, students will be able to open their diagnostic test. Okay, now they all moved over to schedule. And if I click on schedule, I've got a couple different options, right? I can turn on some audio controls so that students can have things read to them for all students or by student, especially if you have students that are language learners. That's a fantastic tool. I would say best practice, just turn it on for all students. And if they use it, they use it. If they don't, they don't, right? And then over here, because our students have not taken the learning path or the diagnostic in the past, there's no diagnostic to fall back on because they have no learning path. If they did have a learning path prior, right, that's the example of mid-July, they come into my program, take the diagnostic, and then of course on August 1st, I have a new diagnostic that pops up. You'd select the student and you could click continue in learning path. And all that's going to do is they may take the diagnostic again, or you can set a window that's on a Sunday for 1 hour long when they're not going to even know that the window opened and closed, and they'll continue on in their learning path. So that's an option as well. And I know I've worked with some different programs within the state to look at how can we just have our students continue on without taking it. And that's the trick we've kind of come up with, the trick exact path, is set an hour window on a Sunday or a minute window where your student's not even going to go in there and just click continue learning path so they can continue on. Best practice is to have them take the diagnostic at least twice a year so you can measure growth. 3 or 4 would be okay as well, depending on how much work they're able to get done in your program. So that is scheduling. You can also unschedule a student from here, and then you can see who's completed it. So I'm going to click over to another classroom just so you can see the one I created earlier today. Oh, I'm in reading. I need to go over to math because I did a diagnostic today or 2. And so I'm going to go back. So I'm clicking on math up here. I'm going to go back into diagnostic scheduling, which is where we were, and select my classroom. Minnesota Lit Demo is what I created earlier today. I have 2 students that are not scheduled currently, and I have 14 that have completed. And some of these students completed because I went through and did it. And some of them completed because I clicked that little button next to their name in the content or in the learning map to assign them a grade level learning path. So they're completed. And they'll show up there. So you can see who's completed it, who hasn't taken it, and what's those pieces. Once they've taken it, you can click over to class results. And you'll have some different data pieces that are going to show up. And we need to make sure that you click the correct classroom so you're seeing the correct data. And you'll see that the 2 diagnostics that I had today, it will give you the scale scores of where your students are at, how many students it's showing you, right? And it's only showing me 2 because the other students I clicked to create that auto-generated path. Their average standard deviations, and then their growth in there if they've taken those diagnostics in the past windows, which we can also look at this data by student, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So it will give you how many students and some different data pieces down here are below, approaching, meets, exceeds during each testing window as well. And then it'll break down for you by student that below, approaching, meets, exceeds, and not applicable. Right down here, it will give you their scale score, their grade, and good place to double check they're all 12. I see that question in the chat. I'll get it in just a second. This one here is a diagnostic I took today, and it has an exclamation mark, which when I click it, it's going to take me to the individual student summary, and it's going to show me they recommend reviewing it. And I'll click on details and look at why. And the reason why they're recommending that I review this one is it's showing me that this student, mathematic testing window 3, this is where they scored. But as I scroll down, this is where diagnostic action options, right? I can reset the diagnostic, override the learning path, or ignore this warning. And I'll show you exactly why this is giving it to me. If you look down in the bottom right-hand side, estimated time they took on their diagnostic was 2 minutes. You should probably see anywhere between, I'd say about a half hour and 50 minutes roughly as a time window. I would give you that would be a window that is probably going to get you some accurate data for a learner. So if you're seeing 2 minutes, that's why that's going to show up. I'm going to pop back over here and show you a couple of different pieces. Growth will show up when there's multiple diagnostics taken, right? National percentile rating of where they're at for their grade level. And then by area and domain, it's going to show you the grade levels are not applicable there. And then the lowest LPEG. So lowest placement on the learning path, and that's by grade. So this one was 3, 5, and then 11 for these because the 11 and 12 share the same content for math. So is it normal to see classes from other programs in our diagnostic window? You see some other areas. I'm going to have you get in touch with Elizabeth to clean that up. It is very possible that you may see some other programs in there because the platform is set up in a way that initially there was the ability to see across platforms. We want to clean it up so you're only seeing your data. So if you are seeing multiple programs in there, let Elizabeth know or myself, and we can definitely help clean that up for you at a later time. So, okay, so that is diagnostics, where you can see the results of it. And to get back to any of this, again, you can always click the Edmentum button to go to that home page. But within math, if I just click math, it'll bring me back to this page where I can schedule my diagnostic and I can see the results of the diagnostic. All right, I'm going to stop for questions again because we just went through a lot with scheduling the diagnostic, and that's where you need to start out with your students to get them to create a learning path for themselves. So any questions with scheduling a diagnostic? Okay, perfect. Next up, oh, I got a hand.
I just thought of one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are they able to start a test, leave it, and come back, or does it all have to be done in one sitting?
They can. Best practice is to do it in one swipe if you can.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So the other piece I'm going to show you real quick that I'm just thinking, I showed you the student that had the exclamation mark. If you need to go in, if you click on your diagnostics and you're going, okay, I need my class results here, and I can see, right, I had that exclamation for that one student, but let's say, oh, I'm in the wrong classroom again. I need to make sure I'm in the right classroom. Let's say that Minnesota Lit Demo number 1, we want to review their individual results. Click on their name and this screen will pop up, right? That's showing me their diagnostics. It also has their learning path over here. So you can go in and you can see where they're at by learning path. But within diagnostic, and I'm going, okay, so this student came to me and they said, you know what? I didn't give it my best effort because our adult learners are honest with us. And I should probably redo that. I can click on their name, go to the diagnostic, click on the content that they had said that in. I can see the, how they placed and reviewed the data myself. I can see the time they took on it. I can see the progression of questions right and wrong. I can go down to domain and I can look at that as well, how they scored in the domains. This is not a proficiency number per se. It's just, hey, this many questions popped up in this area. This is the right or wrong. I can't tell you off the top of my head because I don't know how it breaks it down. I think the programmers behind that said it in a way that it works, and the studies behind it are showing it's accurate. So I'm not even going to attempt to go in there. But if I go back to my diagnostic page on my overview, you see mathematics here. You see that scale score, the percentile ranking, and then there's a reset diagnostic button. So if you're in that testing window, you have somebody come to you and say, I need to retake it. You can reset it for a student. Or if you assigned them a grade level path and you're going, oh, I guess we do have time for them to take that, and you're within the window, you can also reset it there and it will show up on their end for them to take. So, okay, I'm going to get out of the diagnostic portion, go back up top to math again. And I'm going to click on, I'm going to show you these two pieces here, the current activities and the knowledge map. And these are the same information in different ways. Excuse me. So I'm going to click on current activities first. Here you're going to see all your students listed. And I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit. And you'll see what they're currently working on. You'll see I've got some students with blue and some students with gray. And the students with gray, it's because they haven't started their work yet, or they haven't taken the diagnostic. And so this student, I can see that's a student we put on an auto placement for their learning path. So they haven't jumped into their work yet. The blue means that they've logged in and they've completed some work, or they've at least clicked into an activity. And you'll notice that there's some other pieces that you may see if you click this view legend in the top corner. It will show you all the different pieces. So practicing, not started, not ready, right? That's showing up on all of our skills, our next skills, because they haven't completed their current one. That's struggling, not mastered, that we talked about. They're retaking it, or they've mastered it and they'll end up with a trophy. I click over to the knowledge map right up here on the top right. It's going to show me a different view. And this is broken out by grade. So this gets to be a lot of information if you have students, multiple students in a class that are placing in different places. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see. You have that legend here again with the same pieces, but you'll see we've added in building block, assessed above, placed above as well. And so as we scroll down to our students, right, we can see that these guys are all on that. And actually, I need to go back to my class. If you have multiple classes, just remember to change the class. It's a common piece that you go, oh, I'm looking at the wrong set of things, but hopefully you'll know by the names instead of everybody being called demo. You'll be able to see what learning path they're on, right? It corresponds with the diagnostic window. So we're in testing window 3. You're going to see LP3 here. If we're in testing window 2 and a student's working on their learning path, it'll say LP2. If we're in LP3 or testing window 3, but they have not taken the diagnostic yet, it'll still say LP2. So those are some pieces there. And then these students, we have not assigned them a learning path and they have not taken the diagnostic. So if we want them to jump into that learning path, that's grade level, we would just click this and send them on their way to the learning path. So a couple different pieces here, because our students are going to span a very wide array of skills, and there's going to be some gaps in different places. The knowledge map is going to be a great tool, but it's also going to show you a ton of information. So you'll see we're all the way back to 3rd grade here, because our demo student number 2 placed at the 3rd grade level in some skills. They placed above, right, in rounding numbers and adding and subtracting. They're currently working on interpreting multiplication and division, right? And then it omitted these skills here because it said we don't need to work on those skills at a 3rd grade level, right? I do recommend zooming out a little bit sometimes. The scroll bar at the bottom of the knowledge map it's hard to see, especially if you have numerous students there and it's down lower. You have to scroll back up to see some students, and if you zoom out a little bit, you'll be able to see that. So we're going to follow this Minnesota Lit 2 demo student over, and we'll see that they placed above in some 4th grade, right? Their skills omitted, more above in 4th grade, some skills omitted, but they do all these ones that are light gray within there are skills that they're going to work on in their learning path. Right, and it's going to measure that. So the student placed pretty low. That's also the student that we clicked through, right? That took 2 minutes. So we'll see that. But the students that are below them, demo 3, 4, 5, with all the gray blocks, you can see that they're currently all working on 11th grade interpreted polynomial and rational expressions because we placed them at their grade level. So they're starting out with skill number 1. There, and you can see that 11th grade is where it ends. There is a 12th grade, but there's no skills within the standards there for 12th grade. So that's where it placed them. Now the fun part. All right, if you have a student that's working here, and you know what, I'm going to skip this part and come back to it. We're gonna jump in and have you take a look at what it looks like to log in as a student. So I will sign out. I'm going to get you your information in just a second. As you log in as a student, I will show you one of them real quick. Let's just do that. And we'll log in as student number 1 real quick. It's going to ask, are you in class? We're going to say yes. And that's just asking if we're proctored, same as courseware. And then for this student, they're not assigned any courseware. If they had assigned courseware classes, those would show up here as well, just like it would with courseware. But we're going to click on our math and learning path because the student's taking the diagnostic. And you'll see a similar look to courseware, a lesson, and then a progress check that they can't go into until they complete that lesson. So same functionality up top as courseware, same platform with your messages, your notes, your rewards there, and then sign out. So that's the brief overview of the student piece. I'm going to share my other screen and get you some login information to log into the student side. So here again is your login information. And let me stop the share and get you these passwords. And I'll do a quick call out here as well so that you can see that. Give me 1 second to share. I just got to find Zoom. There you go. Okay, so here are the passwords within that login screen on that I put in chat. Andrea, why don't you take Minnesota Lit 1, Sherry number 2, Julie number 3, Matt number 4, Tammy number 5, Cindy number 6, and Lori number 7. And then Elizabeth, if you want to take 8, if you want to log in, you're welcome to do so. Remember the program name, AKA02, and then log in. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. It may not be enough to really get through a full assignment because some of the older grades assignments are like courseware, so they take a little bit more time to complete. But go ahead, click into the learning path and get a feel for it from a student piece. If you want to click through a little bit instead of taking 100% of the time to do so, you can definitely get through that and then try to take a mastery test and see what it looks like. And the data that you generate is actually going to show up in the classroom that we'll peek in next. And we can look at what some of those symbols look like from that. And if we don't get all the symbols, I will find them in another account for us so that we can experience those. All right, time is 3:55. I'm going to say at 4:05, we're going to come back. So play around with that. Take a quick break if you need it as well. And we'll see you at 4:05. I'll be here for any questions. Reports. Okay. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and log us back in. Our instructor and share my screen. So as you can see on my screen, we're logged back in. We're going to click into ExactPath. We're going to go to our math class because that's what our students, that demo students you had, were working out of. I'm going to click on current activities and make sure we select the correct class. our demo, and you'll see that we have some new data here, right? Before, when we looked at this, we had a couple students working on different things. We have a few more students working on different things. We have a student that earned a trophy because they mastered, and we have a student that's struggling. So if we're wondering what those symbols mean, again, you have that legend right here. But you can also go ahead and you can see from the current activities, so what they're working on, what they've just mastered, and what's to come, right? Then you can also click over and look at your struggling student specifically and go, okay, they're struggling with current polynomial and rational expressions. You can click on it and you can see the lesson and practice that they're going through, right? You can see the standards coverage as well. The other piece that we can do is we can close this out and we can go to our knowledge map, and that's the one that shows us everything. That's going to have a wide array of things because our students are in different places. And we'll just look at Lit Demo Student 2. They earned their trophy, right? We can click on that. We can see, we can review what they reviewed and see how they did based on the question, what they said. So they got these all correct, but we could see if they were wrong as well. And Courseware opens a new tab every time you click something, or sorry, Exact Path does as well. So does Courseware. So I'm going to X that one out and go back here. But let's say that, you know, we want to look at what they're currently working on. We have the lesson and the practice here. But for some of the grades, there's also additional resources. So when you have a student that's struggling, my best practice and recommendation would be to go to the knowledge map and click on the struggling piece and go down and see if there's any resources. Now, these are lesson practice mastery quizzes that are different than what they're currently working on, right? And there's also some printables and some different pieces that you could look at as a lesson idea. So some different pieces that you could look at. You can also just click assign. You know, if you want them to work on this here after you review it and go, we need this additional practice. This stuff is good and I like it as the instructor, just click assign and it'll show up in when they log in for them to do. So really quick and easy way to especially help out when we see a struggling symbol there. Now we'll scroll over a little bit and see if we can find our struggling mark, which I think it was up higher. So I'm going to actually zoom out a little bit. Like I said, sometimes it's helpful to zoom out a little bit so you can see the full screen if you have a number of students. There's our struggling mark. So we'll click on that one. And for some of the upper grades, right, this grade, there's not going to be those additional resources. So I'm going to show you a different thing that we can do, right? We have our student that's struggling. Let's click on their name. And I'm going to zoom back to normal. And it's going to bring us to the same screen that we will look at the diagnostic with, right, up top here. But within the learning path, we're going to click on skills. And we know that they're struggling here. And because you're the instructor and you know better than the computer program, right, that they're struggling and that's not the right place for them to be, we can edit the learning path from this screen just by clicking on their name. We'll get you here and then click over to skills. That piece of clicking on skills is another note I would take. It's probably one of the most common pieces that we see. I know how to get here, but I forgot to click over to skills. Click on edit learning path, and you can see that we need to change this one, and we'll just go back to a 9th grade standard. We need to select that skill, solve linear equations, because what they're working on is way too difficult. We know that. We've sat and worked with them, and it's just we need to go back a little bit. Save that skill placement. It's going to pop up. Do you really want to change their learning path? Yes, change it. And now when we X this down, right, and go back here, we'll refresh our screen. You have to click refresh if you just are going back to it. And then we got to click our class again. We can go over and look at that student again and say, okay, so they were working on a learning pathway up here, right? We adjusted them back, demo student, and they are now, let me zoom out again. Okay, and they are now not working up there, right? They are working back here at that 9th grade standard that we looked at. So that's how you quickly adjust that learning path. I wouldn't worry about that right now, right? Contact me, or we can do another question and answer time once you get your feet wet. But that's the learning path progression for students, right? The resources that are available within there, you can see that lesson in practice and assign them additional pieces. And we'll go over at another time too, assigning some other assignments as well. But those are the quick pieces, bonus points if you get there, right? Not expected for the basic functionality that you would know how to do that yet. Okay, I'm going to go back to our homepage. So Edmentum, I'm going to click on that. Right, when we are in our managed classes, I do want to show you something. There's another button outside of managed classes called student settings. They're defaulted for you in a way that they're all unchecked. It is the default, but you can click a couple of these, right? If you want all remediation skills, right, so that it goes all the way back to kindergarten setting, you can turn that on for a student. You can also click adjust content style for 6-12, right? Because those younger grades have that younger content, it defaults to showing the older content for students, but there's some additional resources that have that younger content if your learners are comfortable with it, right? And if you, I don't know why you would, but you can turn off the calculators there as well. And then you can adjust the grade level that they start their diagnostic at. If you have a student that, make sure you're in the right class again. You have a student, we've set them all at 12. We're going, oh, we did that diagnostic last time at 12 and we plummeted down and didn't have a single skill at 12th for lit number 5. I think for our next round, we're going to start them at 9th grade instead of 12th grade. You can adjust that there and just click save changes. Another bonus feature of how to get there. So, all right, any questions before I go into best practices? At this point, we've covered how to create a class, how to look at that, the work that students are doing in that learning path, and how to change a skill if we need to. Any questions there on creating a class and then getting students in a learning path? Okay. I'm going to stop my screen share here. We're going to go over some best practices, and then I'm going to show you some reporting features that I think will be beneficial for you. All right. There that. Okay. So next up, we have best practices. So when you log in for your students, after you get the learning paths up and going, you have the diagnostic assigned for your students, they're working in their learning paths. The best practices when you log in would be to go look at what they're working at right now, right? That current activities. And you can see on this screen some of those additional symbols that we didn't see within the demo program that we just got up and going. You can see what learning path they're in, what skill they previously have done. And you'll see for Haley Dards there, the third one down, that Haley was assigned a building block, right, previously and didn't move forward. So they were moved on to the next skill of modeling division and whole numbers, but hadn't started it yet, right? And then you can see what's to come. If you have a student that has a building block or an X on that side there, click on it and see what's going on. That's a best practice. Check those out. You also see Aaron Carr there with the struggling for writing expressions. Click on it and intervene with them. We always say that Exact Path is fantastic for identifying those needs and identifying where a student's at, getting them the content, but you're the expert as the instructor, right? And this is designed for you to intervene with the student so that we're seeing success quicker and able to provide that feedback. So intervene when you're seeing those different pieces. The other place that I didn't put on there is that knowledge map. You can jump in there and see the resources in the same way and really see what hone in on the grade level too. So, okay. The dosage kind of for Exact Path, if you can get students in there for 40 to 60 minutes per subject per week, that's where we're starting to see exponential growth for our students. So the more they're in there, the better. We know that adult learners have a different schedule than our K-12 learners, and life demands are different. So that's the recommendation if possible, and will help help support those, and then also giving that diagnostic at least twice a year, if not more if possible. So how to get your reports that you need, right? Because we're looking at ExactPath. It's a great tool, but we also know that you need to report contact hours and how to get that. So within ExactPath, if you're an instructor, you have the ability to run what's called a learning path progress report. And then that's specific to ExactPath. And if you're a program administrator, you're able to run what's called a contact hours report. And I'm going to show you both of those real quick of how to access those so that you have that information. Just give me 1 second here. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm sorry we're going back and forth so much, but I want to make sure that you have access to this. So back to the screen over here. I'm going to move our pictures off there, and we're back to this. I'm going to reset that. So I'm going to click Edmentum again to bring us back to our home page. And up top where you would click your class for math, reading, language arts, you have a reports option. If you click on your reports option, it's going to come up with 3 reports. And one thing I love about the reports within ExactPath, same thing as courseware, there's this preview button. If you click it, it's going to show you exactly what that report looks like. So this is not the report we want. We don't want the skills or performance. Great data in there though for your students. But this learning path progress report, you can set your dates. So I know most of you are reporting probably by month or week, depending on what you're inputting. If you want to go, let's go. It's not going to generate us any data because I didn't have anything in there in April. But if you click your dates by subject or all, you can run all your classes, just view that report. And that report looks like this. By student, will give you their total time in system over here on that side. So that is the number that you'll want from ExactPath. Now this does not incorporate in a courseware report. So that is one piece to know, that if you're pulling it from ExactPath, it is for the ExactPath time only. But if you do go to the administration center, if you're a program administrator, the other report that I wanted to show you was this contact hours report. And this you can run by student or by program. So you'll go ahead and if you're looking for, let's go with our demo learner. No, we want, it's XP. Is that going to show us? We'll go demo 25. It's going to have a drop down. This is actually a courseware one. So, but you'll select your appropriate piece there and you'll be able to add by date PDF and generate that report as well. I'm going to just go back here and show you what that report looks like using that preview button again. You'll have your total time logged in and your total times in activities and assignments for the date range that you choose. So that will pull that information for you from the system. So that one will include your courseware and ExactPath for reporting. All right, switch back. We're going to wrap things up and I'll have a little time for question and answer here at the end, and we'll move forward. So those are your reports that you'll run. There are more reports in there. Please don't hesitate to take a peek at the other reports. There's very valuable information, but I know that these are probably 2 of them that you're going to access the most as far as some of your reporting pieces. So we covered a fair amount today, how to get started in ExactPath. Remember, I want you to really have the basics of creating a class, scheduling that diagnostic. And once you've done that, your students are going to take that diagnostic, be assigned a learning path, and they're good to go. Then you just need to monitor your current activities and knowledge map page and move forward from there. The other stuff that I showed you is really bonus stuff that we're going to cover at another session. So any questions that are coming up that are lingering, things that you're wondering about ExactPath that we can knock out together real quick? Okay. I'm going to watch for any hands, and I'm going to watch the chat as well as we wrap the last part up. We'll definitely take some more time to answer those. So next steps, just for yourself, to give yourself a next step for yourself. What specific steps do you plan on taking to support your implementation? And then for next time, my challenge to you is to get those diagnostic assessments scheduled for your students, so you can become familiar with it as well as your students and start moving forward with the program so we can collect data. All right, Matt, I will review that, adding a student here just in a minute, all right, in the administration center. Just like courseware, there's a help center for you that is available. That big purple help center button up in the top corner has great resources for ExactPath. There's a learn and support button, just like there is for courseware. This is actually snippied from the courseware one, but ExactPath has it as well, that you can move through. There's also that keyword piece that you can search for keywords, as well as the administration and instructor guides that are built in to that have great answers for you. Reach out to edmentum.com/support. There's their phone number as well. But like I said in the beginning, don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is andrew.kappel. You can take it right off of Zoom there, @edmentum.com. And I'm happy to connect with you and make sure that things are working as fast as I can respond to those. I will. I know sometimes I'm tied up in trainings for the day and can't right away, but as soon as I can get back to you, I will. And then if you wouldn't mind just quickly taking a quick survey for me, I'm gonna get this link for you and put it in the chat. And this is feedback from me. This is all about me getting better at what I do and presenting and training people on how to use our programs. So if you wouldn't mind just giving me some feedback with that feedback link, that would be much appreciated. While you do that, I'm going to jump back into the administration center. I'll also show you where that the help center button is real quick too. So give me 1 second to get the other piece pulled up, Matt, and then I'll switch over there to that as well. All right, so I am just at the home of ExactPath. When you log in again, you're going to come to this page, the Edmentum Sensei, like you would for courseware. And the same way that you're creating students for courseware, this administration center up on the top access bar, we're going to click on that. Under where it says administration center, you have users and manage. And that will get you to the ability to create a user right about middle of the screen there. You'll click that. And within here, there are only a few things that you have to fill in. You don't need to put every piece of information in here. You do have to select a system role, and it will highlight these for you as we move through, right? Once you've selected learner, it wants you to select a grade. Please select 12th grade so that you have your students there and set ready to go with their learning path. First name and last name are mandatory fields. And then email is not mandatory, but highly recommended that you put their email in there. And if you have specific emails to your program, I'll use St. Paul, for example, at SPPS, I forget what the rest of theirs is, put that in there so that they can do that. And you can search active and inactive as well within here. Username, password, I usually do generic passwords and let them take it from there, and then select their correct program. This down here you don't have to worry about. So okay, that's creating a user. And then I'll show you real quick within ExactPath. I just click the top button for ExactPath. There's that help center right here. Learn and support is a wonderful, wonderful resource, as well as that searchability there. So within learn and support, it's going to take you right away once it loads here to getting started, diagnostics, managing classes. Everything we walk through today will be outlined there, and then some roles and responsibility, but that student experience as well. If you have if you want to show how to use this for any of your learners, there's a great resource there too. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and then any other questions before we let you go for the afternoon? Okay, well, I want to say thank you for having me and allowing me to help you out with getting this going. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I'm here for, is for you and your students to make sure that the use of ExactPath and courseware are helpful. So, and I say courseware as well because I am your person for courseware too. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great afternoon.